Okay, welcome to our media availability after our floor time. This is the end of week one, and it's been a great week. The Senate's been very productive. We've moved some bills and discussions going on in our committees. And today we're going to talk about elections and medical marijuana and any other questions that you might have. But first, turn some time over to Senator Bramble. He's going to be running a bill to modify the election system we passed in SB 54 a couple of years ago. Senator Bramble, glad to have you here.
Any questions?
Well, that was the shortest presentation
Thank you all for listening to the briefing.
He does on the house too, he wants us to vote.
Well, you see, you have to read the bill to know enough to ask questions. So what we're doing, after we passed Senate Bill 54, several stakeholders, primarily the Utah Republican Party, had some concerns about plurality. What happens if you have a number of candidates in a primary and no one gets a majority vote or a significant vote in the primary? There are examples across the country in primaries where a marginal candidate with a dedicated following becomes the party nominee because there wasn't a runoff. So the Republican Party has asked that we provide a mechanism to to address plurality. We've worked closely with James Evans, chairman of the Utah County Republican Party. We've worked with the Elections Office. We've worked with our colleagues, and we have a bill at Senate Bill 114. We moved it from business labor. The reason it was assigned to business labor, we thought originally that committee would be one of the first committees that we could have it heard next week. Turns out that committee doesn't meet until Tuesday. Monday afternoon we have Judiciary, Natural Resources, and Transportation, Public Utilities. So we asked that it be moved to Judiciary so we can have a hearing sooner rather than later, get it to the floor as quick as we can. The Republican Party is having a Central Committee meeting on Saturday, and they have indicated that apparently they had passed a resolution at a previous meeting that if the legislature will address plurality, that they would be willing to drop the lawsuit. And so we're doing what we can to see that that bill gets moved as quickly as we can at this point in the session.
Tell us how the bill addresses plurality. There's been a number of different models proposed.
What this bill does, it creates a runoff election. The first step is any particular election, so for any given seat, would have to have more than 3 candidates to qualify. So 3 candidates or fewer, there wouldn't be a runoff. It has to be more than 3 candidates. If no candidate, assuming that then more than 3, or you could say that 4 or more candidates in the race, if no one gets at least 35%, or I think it's over 35%, 35% is the threshold, so it would have to be over 35%. If someone gets over 35% and they're the top vote getter, there wouldn't be a runoff. If no one gets over 35%, then the top 2 candidates would go to a runoff. The runoff would be conducted in the latter part of August.
So is there a reason why 3 or more instead of 2 or more? I mean, 50% plus 1 is a majority, but why is 35% okay?
Well, it's not okay yet because we haven't passed the law.
Okay.
And anyone's welcome to come testify if they have a burning passion that oppose that. Well, okay, so a couple of reasons. If you look across the country, Iowa is a good example. They use 35%. Other states use different thresholds, but somewhere between 35 and 50% is what you find when there's a runoff on plurality. The more than 3 candidates was at the request of Chairman Evans. There's a trade-off. You want to know who your candidates are sooner rather than later, but you want to make certain that you get the best qualified candidate. Quite often, if your candidate's not known until later in the fall, the party that's trying to identify their candidate will beat each other up, and there's not much time between the runoff and the general. That happened in Utah. We changed the primary from September. We moved it back to June. So the trade-off is, while you want to have a candidate that has significant support, you want to know who your candidate is sooner rather than later. And so with that, the Republican Party at least asked if we would put the more than 3 standard for a runoff. We agreed. And if you do more than 3 for the runoff, 35% fits that very nicely. So it was at the request of the Republican Party that was put in.
Does the bill specify a length of time between the primary and the runoff?
The bill specifies when the runoff will be. We have to do that under federal law because of overseas military, and that was the real challenge in a runoff, was getting a timeline from the primary in June till the general election in November. How do you fit in the 45-day mailing requirement for 2 elections? That's 90 days. That's 3 months are consumed just in mailing without regard to canvassing, certification, perhaps recounts, challenges to the election. And so this bill, the Elections Office accommodates that. One of the ways that we did it, just for the overseas military, that's a population of about 3,500 voters. In this 2016 election, about 1,600 actually voted, 1,600. For those individuals, we already treat them uniquely under federal law. They'll get 2 ballots. They'll get the regular primary ballot, where they'll vote like any other voter in the primary in June. If there's a runoff, at the time they get that primary ballot, they'll get a second ballot that is a ranked choice, instant runoff, preferential. Choose the description, but it's a ballot where all the candidates would be ranked according to the preference, and they would submit that ballot with their primary ballot, and that's how their vote would be counted in the runoff.
So they'd be voting twice, and the second ballot would be.
Only used if
needed.
there's a runoff. 5 or 6 states that have runoffs, that's how they've solved the issue of timing with the military. We thought that was a pretty good model for us to adopt.
Aren't you also looking at making this all vote by mail, just to speed
The
up the process?
the runoff is a vote by mail, and a couple of other things about the bill unrelated to plurality. We're going to change the filing season, the filing period. Currently, well, in 2016, it was from March 11th through March 18th. Caucus night was on March 22nd, just 4 days after the close of the filing season. This bill, we will move the filing, that week-long filing period, we'll move it to the first week in January, and during that filing period, what it'll be, the filing period will coincide with existing law and when you have to identify whether you're going to gather signatures.
Can you speak to, with that instant runoff option, and Chairman Karoun from the Democratic Party, he spoke in favor of having instant runoff for all voters. I'm curious if you could speak to the thinking there.
Oh, I'm certain that the chairman would like that. Instant runoff favors minority parties and minority factions within a party. All the academic literature is clear that if you're a minority party, you want instant runoff. If you're a minority faction within a party, you'd like instant runoff. This is limited just to the military. And I understand why Chairman Karoun would seek that. I heard that the Democrats are a minority party here.
But isn't the lieutenant governor actually given some leeway? It probably ends up that way, but there may be
Yeah,
another option for him too.
Thank you. The reason I talk IRV, the bill will actually give rulemaking authority to the elections office where they can do mail-in, instant runoff, online, paper ballot. It's going to direct the lieutenant governor's office by rule, but they've already telegraphed that they will adopt IRV for the first runoff.
Senator Escamilla, have you, your caucus or
We're-
party had some discussions on this?
There's been some discussions, and we are, we want to see also that plurality being addressed, and we'll just wait for the final language, but I think most of the Democrats agree that we needed that as part of our changing on our election process, so we're looking forward to the bill.
Has the Senate GOP caucus talked about this, and is this seen as a solution that members will support?
Senator Okerlund?
We have talked about it. Conceptually, we support, the caucus will support it. We haven't seen a bill yet. Senator Bramble is just getting it out. It'll go to committee and go through the process, and it'll have a good debate all the way through, but conceptually, this is what the caucus would like to see happen.
Lisa, if I could address that about the genesis of this particular proposal. This has been discussed among legislators collectively. I mean, I've spoke with members of the House, the Senate, both sides of the aisle. We've had the chairman of the Republican Party. I personally haven't had a discussion with the chairman of the Democratic Party, but we've tried to have it out there. The media has been reporting that this has been coming for some time now. So this has been in process for a while.
We experienced signature gathering, I think, first time last election process, and there were some of those that gathered signatures that had no other opposing candidate. That's a lot of time, effort, and resources. So the filing date, I think, had a lot of interest to people, and it seemed more logical that that filing date was that.
I assume a big driver of this, too, is to get rid of that SB 54 lawsuit once and for all, right? I mean, isn't this the one issue that's still hanging out?
Well, look, as a state, we need to have closure on our election process. There's no greater opportunity than casting your voice and your vote. And we take that very seriously. We'd like to find a resolution to the disagreements.
And this will do it, in your mind? You've got assurances from the GOP? I see a nod from the president.
The chairman of the party has represented, well, they apparently passed a resolution saying if we address plurality adequately, that they would withdraw the lawsuit.
But are they seeing this as adequately, at least in conceptual?
I believe you'll have to ask them. My understanding is that they will address that on February 4th at their central committee meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have Senator Shizawa here today to talk a little bit about medical marijuana and where we're headed with that this session. There was a press conference this morning?
There's a press conference this morning.
Okay, so maybe everybody's heard this, but in case you have any questions, why don't you just tell us give us a summary on where we're headed this session, and if there's any questions, please offer those up.
I can summarize basically some of the statements that were made during the press conference, and that is, for example, from Representative Farr from the House and also Daw, that they basically talked about establishing by statute some framework in terms of research going forward, but I don't see the Madsen bill, for example, going forth this session, at least based on what I've heard. What Representative Daw is doing, however, is doing some actual bill language that would allow research on medical marijuana here in the state of Utah. My interest in this, and Mr. President, you remember this, is a follow-up on that bill that we passed through the Senate and the House last year, and that is call for two things. One, the change on the scheduling from a Class 1 to a Class 2. And what that effectively would do is, it would make this hazardous or potentially dangerous drug prescribable, recognizing the drawbacks to it, but it also allow the research. And right
be
now,
sold through a pharmacy.
And it could be,
Which is
part
at
of
least
the issue.
important to me.
Exactly, and in fact, your name came up during the press conference regarding that, and your concerns about dispensing and how that would be handled.
Right.
So that's basic. This bill is a follow-up. What I'm going to do is we have already buy-in from USTAR, the University of Utah, and other organizations to get a number of studies going, and these would be formal, double-blinded, randomized, IRB-supported studies using real people with the real drug by DEA-endorsed and certified researchers. So they're legal. Not only they're legal, but if they're done the right way, we will get that vital information which will ask and answer the question, does medical marijuana work in certain indications? What are the side effects that we observe? And what are the concentrations and dosage? It will give us that valuable information. Why that's so important is we know that, for example, the figure we're hearing from VA, up to 22% of VA people, veterans, are using marijuana in some form because of the PTSD. And there's other non-military people with PTSD, for example, using it. So the three study arms that we have proposed right now are the following. Number one, medical marijuana is an alternative for opioids in the treatment of chronic pain. Number two, medical marijuana in the treatment of cancer, for example, as an appetite stimulant. and also as an anti-nauseant. And if you've dealt with family members or friends who've had cancer, you know that either the process of the disease or the chemotherapy and radiation therapy, really, the poor patients suffer. They waste away, they don't feel like eating, they can't eat anything, they're nauseated. This may help. And also, what if it helps with pain? And then the third thing in the cancer issue is, what if this actually does shrink tumors? What if it does have some actually anti-tumor effects? Wouldn't that be remarkable? And this is some of the questions we can start asking and answering through this. Then the third arm of the study would be on PTSD. And does medical marijuana help, in fact, these people with PTSD? So those are the three indications we're looking at. Each of those has a price tag of about $350,000, and we'd look for funding. And we're going to run that as an appropriations request through Business Economic Development. Now, why it's housed there is for a couple reasons. For one reason is that we look on this as a potential economic benefit to those people in the state of Utah in terms of an alternative in terms of medication and treatment. And so that's one of the main reasons we're doing it that way. It's clean, it answers it's legal, and it asks those vital questions. And we can really ask and answer and add to the known knowledge on this. I'm going to just...
No other state really has done this, taken this approach.
No, they
that I
haven't,
know of,
Mr.
so.
President, and which frankly is a little surprising
It is
in a
surprising.
country like this. But most of it have not, because they haven't gone to the trouble of doing it this way, and they've relied on anecdotal observational studies. But if you look at the existing research, and I did the laborious research. I read all of Madson's bills, or his research studies. And then I read the review that was done in the New England Journal and JAMA on their meta-analysis of the existing literature. And these are pretty reputable journals, and there just isn't the amount of research out there to robustly support certain medications. Now, I'm still disappointed that the former president did not take that step to change the schedule. I mean, he did plenty of executive orders. This would have been a great one for him to embark on. But the fact is we are here now, and so we're going to go forth positively.
Any questions?
That's it.
Senator Erkin, I mean, the Senate's led out on this issue for the last couple of years. It tends to be tied up once it passes to the chamber. I mean, any thoughts on this proposal and how it might be received by the caucus?
We haven't had this discussion in caucus yet, but I can tell you that we have been supportive of Senator Shiozawa's efforts here. We think that he is a real leader and someone that we can put a lot of trust in to be able to go out and do all the work that is necessary to make sure we have good information. We're supportive. I'm supportive, and I think that we will continue to be supportive of his efforts to get good information out there. And that's going to probably take some money. It's probably going to take an appropriation to get that research done, and I think we'll make sure that gets a lot of consideration.
Your bill on rescheduling, a resolution passed last year. I think it passed by a wide majority, didn't it? Or
It was
was it-
unanimous.
I was gonna say, I
That's a pretty wide majority.
I can't remember a no vote, but I wanted to say that, so it moved very quickly, and the ideas you've had, I think I would be surprised if there wasn't broad support for this also, but there may not be.
Minority caucus, any,
yeah,
this
we-
may be fresh information for you, but any comments?
I've been the member that served on Health and Human Services, and I think 3 years of conversations, we want to see action, and I agree that I don't think there's going to be a Senator Madsen style bill. So anything that moves us forward in a thoughtful and, scientific evidence-based approach, we support that, but we think we need to take action as a state. So you'll see, I think, our caucus for sure supporting the initiative of Senator Shiozawa.
Can you talk, Senator Shiozawa, about timelines? I mean, you're talking about focusing on research, and as we all know, research takes time. When would you expect there to be medical marijuana available for some of these things? How long is this process?
If you go to other states, you can already get the particular drugs available out there in various formulations. They're called this. What this would do, though, here in our state, is it takes it down that the very formal and reproducible path of gaining knowledge on this, we get the funding, we might be able to start these studies this year. And the duration of these studies might be months. And let's say you take 60 or 100 patients with this indication, you randomize them to the study, you do these studies and then get your results. If we go through this and do it right, we might be able to use MRI to verify, in fact, that there are some certain changes. So that it's not just a subjective return on these, but actually get the data. This has so much positive potential here for the advancement. Now, and then imagine yourself as either a policymaker here or in DC, when you have some studies that come out and they say either this works,
Yeah, that's a
or
really good point.
it doesn't work. And if it does work, what are the side effects? For example, when you look at the CBD that we're doing up at primary, the CBD for kids with seizures, it's helping on some of the kids, but it's not a panacea. It's not a complete cure. There are some liver effects that we're seeing. And so these are the things that we need to find out on these particular drugs that go forward. But if we can get this vital piece of knowledge, then it will affect our ability to make intelligent decisions. And who knows, maybe it will have an effect on a national basis to get us from point A to point B, which would be a more reasonable position.
So at least initially, some people could hope to participate in the study.
These are real people.
Right.
These aren't animal studies, petri dishes. This is real patients involved in this. And so one of the things that appeals to me, Senator, is the very fact that we are in fact taking real Utahns involving in these studies, and we will ask and answer the question with them.
But some would be randomized, obviously,
It would
and
be.
not receive. So how many people would you anticipate involving in these studies? You've got a price tag, I assume you have a size.
We do, and I'll have to check the exact figures on that with the particular institutions, but my preliminary guess is between 60 and 100 patients per study in the initial arms, and then you would go from there.
And that includes the randomized.
Exactly.
Yesterday, we talked a little bit about alcohol policy here. It was a fun discussion. There's a few articles that resulted from that, and so the press really appreciated that discussion, obviously. So we have Senator.
Judicial confirmation.
Thank you.
I need to go to.
Thank
Excuse
you.
me.
We have
Hey, maybe we ought to send.
Senator Stevenson here today to probably clarify some issues and kind of give you just an update. I thought it might be good to have a little bit at least closure for the week regarding alcohol policy. So Senator Stevenson.
Thank you. If I would have been here yesterday, I wouldn't have to speak from under the bus today, so.
And there is a text out there that says, Mr. Niederhauser, tear down this wall.
I think that's private.
Oh, is that private? Okay.
But I would be happy to show it to anyone who's interested. We've been working on this, on a bill to try and clarify some alcohol policies for 2 or 3 months now. And, you know, there are a lot of players. I think this has been stated. But if you listen to what the governor said the other night, Utah leads in some very strategic areas as far as alcohol policy. Drunk driving, we're the lowest in the nation. We don't binge drink. Our teenagers and others don't binge drink as often. And we have less teenage alcohol. And anything this bill comes out, it will be framed around those policies. The Zion Curtain, all of you know, has been in place for about 10 years now, and it is ineffective because it was put in place initially with a grandfathering clause, and it's been tampered with through the years because of the licensing issues that surround it. So what we'd like to do is clarify this, make it so that responsible drinkers can drink and not cause issues with our legal system, and that we can keep children away from alcohol. And that's the objective of what we're trying to do. And we think that's achievable.
We just wanted to probably have, part of the discussion yesterday was to let everybody know that while we'll have a bill, it still has a long way to go, and a lot of a lot of eyes to look on it and a lot of votes to be taken on it. So it's not just something that's going to happen.
A lot of discussion between now and either a pass or fail on it.
And if I could just add, you know, the senator addresses some of the policies. You also have the DABC management piece, and Senator Maine has been also working very proactively the last, I will say, 3 years in addressing from our, you know, the management component, employee pieces. So I think that's also an important component as we deal with all these policies related to alcohol. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we are the ones selling the alcohol in the state and what implications that have and whether we're doing a good job managing that component, I mean, the state as a whole. So that's another issue that I know I'm not an expert, but Senator Maine in our caucus has been very proactive on that.
Senator Maine and I actually have two competing bills that deal with the management of ABC, but they're completely separate issues from the preparation area that we've discussed.
And I think
Any
that-
questions? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, maybe wait for questions, but I think as I mentioned yesterday, I think I'm pretty confident that our alcohol laws, and feel strongly about it, as a matter of fact, they've served us very well. And, you know, if we have new ideas, and we haven't seen the bill yet, but I know Senator Stevenson and Representative Wilson have been working on it. If anybody can come up with better ideas, they can. So if the ideas are better, I think they'll probably be accepted. If they're not, we'll probably keep working. But I look forward to the bill coming out and what's there.
All liquor stores will be in the proximity of the new prison.
It really is an amazing issue that
Not a bad concept.
that creates a lot of interest over the years as I've been in the legislature. Whenever there's been interest in alcohol, or there's been the possibility of some alcohol policy discussion, that seems to consume all the press availability. When I was here with Senator or President Waddups, I was amazed as a person new to leadership a number of years ago to have so many issues on the table, but they all kind of came back to alcohol policy when we had discussions in our media availability. So we know it's an important issue. We know it's important to the people, and we understand that. So we're going to be very careful about what we do. Any questions from our viewers?
We do have one question. This gentleman would like to know your thoughts on Trump's call for a 20% tariff from Mexico, knowing that Mexico is Utah's #1 source of imports.
Okay. Well, I guess that was an executive order, Senator Escamilla, you
I
might
think
know more
it's-
about it than
So as
I
they're,
do.
yeah, my understanding is he's trying to impose that. It's not done yet, but
Would
impose that
Congress
tariff.
have to have, I hope
take
that-
action on that. It's a proposal to pay
Well, then
the
nothing will
$15
get done
billion.
then.
It's a $15 billion expense on that wall, so that's his way of dealing with that. But I'll just add, I think I'm glad that we're having a conversation about trade, because there is bigger issues beyond just immigration when we talk about our relationship with a partner in trade. And I think the Mexican government has also been very outspoken about how they would like to maybe reconvene and have more conversations on that. But you're right, I mean, for Utah it will be, and we've said that before, with any trade components, we need to understand that they may have some economic development impact for us as well in our
Sure.
economy.
And trade isn't the only thing that is important to us with regards to Mexico. There's a lot of cultural exchanges, family exchanges, and all kinds of things. We're very connected
We're close,
to Latin America and all our countries to the south. So it's an important issue for us, and we'll have to see how that goes. Any other, I guess that should probably, any other questions? Thanks for being here, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and we'll be back on Monday.